Welcome to the Short Funk Podcast. I'm Tom Barbalet. Today, winding up the garden. It's been an interesting, somewhat experimental summer. I haven't got the volume of tomatoes that I was originally hoping, and my view is that this pot method that I've been using this year is suited for some plants, jalapenos for example, zucchinis, but not associated with tomatoes. Tomatoes seem to be easily flustered, they don't like having their roots confined. The whole circumstance where I was able to grow tomatoes successfully on a deck is just a contrast, I think, to growing tomatoes in a relatively large space in pots that have periodically moved around. And part of it is associated with a burden of care. When tomatoes are in pots, they're obviously considerably more fickle, and I have too many tomatoes. But part of it is also the benefits of a garden bed for growing tomatoes with good quantities of fruit. I've seen videos online associated with training tomatoes. I recorded recently about whether or not I need to start doing active pruning of tomatoes when they're in their vegetative state. And I think actually this is probably something that people have used for some degree of success for a number of years. Probably one of these things where if you talk to Italian artisanal gardeners, you will find that this is just part of their general behavior associated with tomatoes. But it hasn't been part of my gardening culture up until now, so I haven't really paid that much attention to it. But I will in the future. I've talked to my wife, we're going to put in garden beds in the next year, if we survive the next year, and with garden beds, tomatoes are considerably less finicky, they can just grow in place, they can be watered sporadically, they don't require the same burden of care as a tomato where their sole source of water and general nutrients comes through a small pot. And in this regard, my hope is next year, flourishing tomatoes, more tomatoes than I've had this year, and a distinctly different gardening experience. The process of putting these plants to bed, actually what I'm using is some gardening shears and just chopping off the vegetative component, throwing that away, and working through the soil and roots remaining. This is the way I'm handling slowing down the garden this year. Without garden beds, planting winter vegetables don't seem that necessary, and certainly the onions that I have growing will continue through the winter months without any problem. I think in general, for my gardening style, the pot method has been a bit of a failure. Certainly in terms of jalapenos, no shortage of jalapenos, they've worked out very well. The zucchini has been pretty good too, but the tomatoes are just too finicky for this kind of method, and I think in the past where I've grown tomatoes on balconies, it's usually been in larger pots, where the pots aren't moved, and just in general, the tomatoes that I've grown are usually cherry tomatoes or existing robust varieties rather than the heirloom tomatoes that I decided to grow this year. It always saddens me the end of summer. It always saddens me associated with cleaning up one's garden through the summer months. But it's just part of the nature of gardening. It's something that you have to accept. And although I'm disappointed at the lack of tomatoes this year, it's certainly been a learning experience that I'll take with me to future gardening endeavours. Tom Barbalet in San Jose, signing out.